La 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 la. Hello. Hello, hello. Hello, one person. Welcome. We'll give it a, couple moments here for a few more folks to pop in, and then we'll get her going. All right, there's three. Chris Brumbaugh. Hello, Chris. How you doing, man? Thanks for stopping by. Hope you're having a good, actually a great day, great week. Folks, pop into the chat and let me know who you are. Introduce yourself. Do a little roll call here. Yes, I am, Chris. I'm using a Blue Spark. I love this microphone, man. This thing is good. I'm glad. Yeah, it's this was like pretty cheap microphone, you know? It was maybe, I don't know, a couple $100, but man, it sounds incredible. And to get a pretty like inexpensive tube preamp and a pretty good Focusrite interface. But yeah, it's not like a super expensive setup or anything. Yeah, it's an awesome mic, dude. It really is. There's actually a mod. I don't know if I play guitar and sing poorly and do some other stuff. So I use this mic a lot for recording. And there's actually a mod that I forget who can do it, but they can mod this microphone to sound like really close to a Neumann U87. So who else is in here? I see four. So pop in, folks. Let's do a little five. All right. Let's do a little roll call. I just want to know who I'm talking to. Let me know too. I'm gonna start off. Basically, I'm gonna maybe butcher your name, dude. So I'm sorry. Mike Shrewsbury, what's up, man? How you doing, dude? Joaquim Cesar Silva Nozera. What's happening in your world? I'm a failed drummer and sound engineer. I'm impressed. What's happening in my world? A lot of stuff, man. Making cymbals for the most part, and getting into making some content and trying to continue the mission of spreading uh, proper cymbal information. Because my entire life leading up to my career as a cymbal maker, uh, the information that was available to people about cymbals came from basically Zildjian and Sabian, you know, and so they just could tell you whatever. And it's not that it was all lies, but some of it was and still is, and some of it's just sort of slanted, you know, to get you to buy cymbals, which is obviously the purpose of owning a business is to get people to spend money and buy stuff. But in this day and age, I think the consumer needs to be educated, man. Like there's a lot more stuff available. There's people like me who are making cymbals in a much more independent and transparent way. And you really, in this age of the internet and communication, you just can't really lie to people the way that you used to. Like, you could still BS people, I guess, if you got a really solid marketing department, but um, you know. So I just want to keep this mission going of just giving people the power to make good informed decisions about what they play and make better choices. So with that being said, I chose a topic tonight of symbol selection because I find that this is something that Tyler counts with propaganda. Yeah. I mean, basically, you know, propaganda is a pretty loaded word, but it's, you know, that's is what it is. Do you start from blanks or do everything? Hey, Adam, what's up? I start from blanks, but I have done everything in Brazil, and in a little bit in Turkey, but I did the full process in Brazil and actually made blanks and everything. It's pretty crazy, but I just don't have the facility to be able to do that. It's you need like a full on full sized factory foundry, and that is a pretty substantial investment. So but to be honest with you, I'm a little bit more interested in the part of the process that I do anyways. What's up? Hey, Eric, man, what's going on? Eric Metz, Croaker Percussion. For those of you watching, Croaker Percussion is awesome. Check them out. Eric's a good buddy. So what's going on, Eric? Where was I? I was giving my little dissertation. Yeah, so I wrote up a little introduction here. And basically what I want to do, the scope of this thing is just to kind of give you guys the tools and information to make proper selection choices, because as I was saying before, people come to me and they go like, I love your cymbals, they look really cool, I see these people playing them, but like I don't know what to get, what do I do? I see it looks like you have a lot of choices, there's a lot of series, people nowadays just have option overload, man. Like it's just it is kind of stressful because everybody's mind is being pulled in a thousand different directions all the time. Like you start one task and then your phone beeps, your email dings, and it's just like, how can you have the presence of mind to really stay focused on trying to figure out what kind of symbol I need, So this is sort of a way to kind of narrow that down for you a little bit. Adam says, I remember when I was young, the whole cast for a sheet thing, campaign against me. I could tell that. Yes, absolutely. That is a topic I've delved into quite deeply on a couple of different podcasts. Yeah, that's a whole thing. I'm going to touch on B8, B20 stuff a little bit. So I'm going to start off with what I wrote up here, and then we're going to get into some Q&A in each section. I'm going to open it up for questions, and we'll go that way. So a symbol is essentially a tool. It's a tool to do a job, and the job is to convey musical expression. All right. But, fundamentally, it's a tool. Okay. If music is your business, then your instruments are investments in your business and in yourself. So you should think of them that way. If you're really serious about what you do, then the stuff that you use is an investment in yourself and in your future. There's many ways to use a tool to accomplish a job. We'll take the example of like a screwdriver, okay? Or say you want to drive a screw into a piece of wood. You can use a screwdriver, but if it's a really long, really thick screw, it might be more efficient to use an electric drill, right? But you could still get the job done with a screwdriver. Some people might prefer to still use a screwdriver because you have a little bit more control over it. The point is, there is no one symbol for one job. Like you can manipulate the situation either through your playing or whatnot to accomplish the goal of musical expression in a proper setting with a variety of different tools. You don't always have to have like, I need a crash to do a crash. I need the rock ride to play rock. Like those are vague sort of generalities to sort of run by, but you're better off being more educated on what the symbol is and how you can use it. Forget about somebody else telling you what you should do with it. You decide, like the power's in your hands. So, the process of selection, the number one thing you need to do is figure out what's important to you. Does the brand NickyMoon Custom Cymbals matter to you? Does the appearance of the symbol matter to you? Because if those things are really important, if you're like I'm a Meinl fanboy, I have to play Meinl. Okay, well now you got to live in that world and you got to pick from what they offer. All right. And if you're super hung up on the appearance, it has to be this particular look. Again, that's going to kind of narrow your world a little bit. There's a series of questions you should ask yourself. Number one, what is the reason that I am buying the symbol that I'm considering? Is it a specific purpose that I have in mind? What style of music am I predominantly going to play with the cymbal? Do I intend to use it live? in the studio, or both? Will the cymbal be traveled with regularly? What sticks do I use mostly? And am I willing to make a greater upfront investment in the instrument, getting a really good top quality instrument that seriously meets my needs, spending maybe a little bit more, but knowing that it's going to do what I need it to do for the long term? Or am I the type of person who has to save a few bucks and I will take something that I like less to save $75 or whatever? Because if that is who you are, think very carefully about doing that, because that's going to more often than not result in you going, okay, I got this thing. I don't like it quite as much, but I saved 75 bucks. But 3 months down the line, you're going to be not all that happy with it. So you're going to probably want to buy something else. And in the long term, it's not going to serve you financially as well. And you'll never be as happy with what you're playing. So it's always wise to, just if you can, but like, there's the saying, buy cheap, buy twice, basically. Now, once you've answered all those questions, you can sort of use deductive logic to kind of start narrowing things down. All right. With the understanding of some of the key characteristics that I'm going to drop on you now. The most important point that I'm going to make, and you got to like listen to this, understand this, and spread this out to the drum community. Size, thickness, weight, tension, surface finish, profile height are all intertwined. Therefore, one characteristic alone cannot control a sonic outcome because it is always influenced by comorbid mitigating factors. I know that sounds heavy, but you know what I'm saying. When we're discussing changing the outcome of one factor, we must assume that by changing this one factor, all other characteristics would have to be equal. Basically, what we're talking about is the scientific method. Okay. For example, a medium ride, this is like the statement, a medium ride is higher pitch than a thin ride. True or false? People, somebody weigh in on that. Anybody? Okay, I'm not going to wait. That is fallacy. That is a junk science statement. For that statement to work, false. Thank you, Adam. Good job. Adam's been Adam's been learning. He's been following me for a while. He's getting it, man. Um, for that kind of statement to work, you would have to say it like this. Brian says false. Correct, sir. Correct. I think there's a delay on the chat. That's why, maybe why they're coming through a little bit later. Anyways, for that to work, you'd have to say a 20-inch medium ride is higher pitched than a 20-inch thin ride, so long as the exact alloy, manufacturing techniques, surface finish, bow tension, bell size, bell shape, profile height, and curvature are all identical. Then it is reasonable to make that assumption. Okay? Does that make sense? So if you have all the other factors are identical and the only thing that changes is the thickness, then you can say, yes, it's reasonable to assume that the pitch would go up. But without all those other factors being considered or identical, you cannot make that statement. Okay. So by having a better understanding of how these individual factors sort of work together, you can start to make better choices because, excuse me, a lot of people are making the wrong choices. They're buying cymbals that don't serve them. And that bothers me. I don't like seeing people do that, waste their money. So we're going to start off by talking about size. Okay. So the size of your cymbal, measured in diameter, as in like 18 inches, 20 inches, whatever, determines the response time, sustain, and to some degree, the pitch. Response time is something that I feel like I don't know if everybody really understands what that means. So I'm going to try to break it down. Response time and sustain are intertwined, and they are the most important factors in relation to the size. Okay. I see a lot of people mess this up, and I see jazz guys. Jazz guys tend to be the most picky. They seem to have the most trouble here. They want stick definition and control. A cymbal that sustains too much is difficult to control, particularly in a sensitive style like jazz. Therefore, I tend to recommend to jazz guys for rides 19 to 22 inches. No bigger, no smaller. I got a burp, guys. I'm sorry. Something about talking and sucking down air just makes it come up. So I see these guys playing like, oh, it's a 24. Like, that is not going to work, man. Like, in most circumstances, it's just not going to work. 20 to 21 is what I recommend for most guys playing jazz. That's like a really good place to start. All right. It's most versatile. Cymbal's big enough to sound full, but it's small enough to like still be controllable. A smaller diameter cymbal makes the sound quick and then it dies quick. That's what fast response is. Yoquim cymbals for worship. We will get to that. Okay. Um, but for worship in general, big kind of washy loose cymbals tend to be what's popular. So, where were we? Okay, so fast response. Think of a splash cymbal. Shing, done. Hit it, sound ends. It's over, right? The larger diameter cymbal, you hit it, you still hear the initial ding around the same time, but then it's the rest of the tone happens slower, and then it takes longer for it to stop. So if you keep hitting it, that is going to build and build and build and build and build. And that then eventually the stick, you can't hear it anymore. You just hear like a wall of sound, right? Like, so a good way to think of that is response time of a cymbal in relation to size. Have you ever like shaken out your laundry, right? Like if you shake out like a pair of boxer shorts or a t-shirt, you just you give it a quick snap and it happens fast. But if you try to shake out like a blanket or a comforter for your bed real big, the force and energy that you put into it happens at the same speed, but the reaction that you get from it is way slower. All right. And that's exactly what happens with a cymbal. So if you like a fast response, you want to select the cymbal that responds quickly. Now, size can also affect volume and projection, but that is more in relation to the overall mass than its size alone, mass being density multiplied by volume. Therefore, a smaller diameter but much thicker cymbal can have a higher mass than a larger, thinner cymbal, and therefore the volume can be different. So now, there's any questions on size? Because I'm going to move it into thickness and weight. That's the Jeopardy theme. For those of you who don't know, I am dating myself. Eric Metz, you know what Jeopardy is. Eric's a smart guy. Questions, questions, questions. Anybody got questions? I just wrote that, guys. It's a hit. How does the shape and thickness of the bell on a cymbal affect its sound? We are going to get to that. Right now, I just want to talk. I'm just open it up for just the general diameter size questions. Does the same size rule apply to hi-hats? Yes, it does. Absolutely. Does cymbal wobble have any effect on sound? I found myself looking for cymbals that have really good wobble to them. Yes, it does. Cymbals that wobble have loose tension, which means they're not very well defined as far as sticking, but they're very crashy and, they resonate very easily. There's not a lot of restriction on the resonance. So if you like washy crashy, then you would want a lower tension cymbal that wobbles. But don't just get a wobbly cymbal because it looks cool. Yeah. As far as hi-hats, Adam, yes. This is something that I always tell people because I know 16-inch hi-hats was like a real big it was like a popular thing. It's kind of dying down a little bit now, but I would always tell people that would contact me for like a custom order. I want to get some 16-inch hi-hats. I would always ask them, have you ever played 16-inch hi-hats before? And if not, I would say go down to your local store or get a hold of some and play them first because they feel way different than 14s if that's what you've been playing, or even 15s. Um, they're it's a whole different experience with the feel of the foot, and also the response to the stick, and just the whole playing experience. Yes, it has a real big impact in that regard. Okay. All right, so we'll take it into thickness and weight here. All right. Thickness determines weight. Therefore, we're going to consider them as one factor in this instance. Generally speaking, thicker means the perceived pitch. Sorry, just got distracted. The perceived pitch will sound higher. Granted, all other attributes of the symbol are exactly the same as we discussed before. Generally speaking, thicker means a longer sustain than thinner. Again, granted, all other attributes of the symbol are exactly the same. A couple questions here. For hi-hats, if you want to have a lower volume, do you focus more on size or density, thickness? Um, for hi-hats, if you want a lower volume, you would want thin cymbals, definitely. You would want lower profiled cymbals, and you would want, depending on how much of a lower volume, you would want like perhaps unlathed cymbals as well. So thin, low profile, unlathed cymbals would be like sort of the ultimate low volume hi-hat. And then depending on how you wanted to use them, size could also play into it. Like if you wanted to just sort of like that real thick, sort of buttery feel for playing that kind of speed, like a 16 would be cool. But if you're playing really intricate stuff, 16 is not necessarily what you want. Adam saying my 16 hi-hats are not fast. Yes, exactly. They're not fast. You can get away with 15s and still get some speed out of them, but that's it. That's the limit that I have found. I have never played a pair of 16-inch hi-hats that felt particularly bring me a pair of those to the DU drum show. All right, man. We'll talk about that. Definitely. Definitely, definitely, definitely. Yeah. So as far as thickness, weight in general, again, in general, medium thin is, as a cymbal maker, the most versatile thickness slash weight that that I particularly feel you could work with. If I was given the restriction for the rest of my life or career that you can only work with one thickness weight for all the cymbals that you're going to make for the rest of your life, I would choose to work with medium thin because I can make a medium thin cymbal sound really articulate and pingy and sound much heavier than it is. And I can also make a medium thin sound much washier and thinner than it actually is. It's sort of the ideal range for versatility. All right, so we'll move it into volume and projection. The volume of your cymbal is a result of its overall mass and construction. The projection of your cymbal is determined by the overall mass and construction as emphasized by its shape. Okay. For example, a 20-inch B8 alloy heavy ride will sound louder than a 20-inch B20 alloy medium ride. Again, granted, all other attributes of the cymbal are exactly the same. I'm going to keep saying that until everybody in the world gets it. Why is that the case? Because B8 naturally emits higher frequencies than B20, and coupled with the additional mass, it will result in a higher perceived volume. A cymbal's bell is central to its sound. Somebody asked me about bells. So who was that? How does the shape, thickness of a bell? Professor Chocolate Cake. That's a great handle, man. A cymbal's bell is central to its sound and performance. It acts as an amplifier of frequencies, particularly the high frequencies. Therefore, it would theoretically be possible to match the projection of the 20-inch B8 alloy heavy ride with a 20-inch B20 alloy medium ride by constructing the 20-inch B20 medium ride with a larger bell. Dom, what's up, buddy? How you doing, man? So I hope that example makes sense to you. So here's two different alloys, different thicknesses, but you're now changing a different attribute the bell size to sort of account for those differences. And now you can change things that way. This is why you can't just say, "Oh, does a cymbal with this kind of bell sound like this? Or does a cymbal with that bell sound like that?" Well, what's the rest of the situation? What are the circumstances? What is every other circumstance? And then I can tell you. An example like of maximum volume and projection is like the Peisty, what is it called? The Dave Lombardo from Slayer, the drummer of Slayer, he has like a signature ride. It's the Peisty Rude Mega Bell ride, basically. It's the biggest bell, the heaviest, highest profile, stiffest bow, brightest alloy that one could purchase. So that thing will project and sound louder than probably any other ride cymbal that you could ever get your hands on. All right. However, there's always a however. How is it then that which are the biggest symbols in Nicky Moon? Um I'm gonna get in shortly into talking about what I do and what I offer, but it's a little bit different than the symbol buying experience with me is different than most people are used to. So I will answer that question very shortly. I promise. I just want to stay on this topic because I have ADD and I tend to lose my train of thought. So we were talking about projection and volume and the B8 huge symbol that's really loud. So how is it then that has ever you guys know those like Wuhan China cymbals, the ones with the weird shaped bell? It's because they were handles for hitting them together. Some of those, why is it that that thing seems louder than the heaviest of I mean, have you ever stood next to one of those things? Like, man, they seem really loud, right? How is that possible then? Because that's thin, it's B20, right? Like it's all hand hammered. Well, it has to do with the construction and the alloy. All right, coupled with the manufacturing techniques, it brings out this extreme level of trash and complexity. The Chinese alloy that they use, yes, it's B20. I've tried to make this point a lot. B20 is not B20. Okay. You got to think about it like food, man. Like apple pie, for example. You got your grandma's apple pie, which is, it's kick ass, so good. You got like the apple pie you can get at the convenience store. It's all prepackaged and full of preservatives and terrible, and a whole bunch of different things in between. Technically, they're all apple pie. They're all made from the same ingredients, but they're prepared much differently. And the quality of those ingredients that went into them also differs very much. So you cannot say, well, it's B20, so it's got to be good. No, no, definitely not, dude. It can be very different. They can be very different. Okay. But so the Chinese alloy contains more impurities due to environmental contaminants, and it also has a looser crystalline grain structure than the Turkish or now North American alloys have. This is also why that alloy is far more brittle than the Chinese alloy is more brittle. Okay. Um, it also results in a very chaotic sound. Um, there is little bits of iron, lead, other metals in there that all has an impact on the sound. The way that they hammer them, all that, it results in this like real sort of chaotic to me. Chinese alloy sounds like very chaotic, like white noise, very trashy, almost like a distortion pedal or like a cranked up overdrive, right? So you take all that and you couple it with the fact that a China cymbal is that profile with that huge like edge curve, which is really disruptive to the sound waves. So all that put together is a recipe for like, you know, that's why they sound so loud. Yes, yes, yes. All right. Now we'll get into dryness because this is another thing, man. This is like a dryness is a big one. Dryness is a term that it's sort of a loaded term and it's used to describe different things. One person's describing dryness in a symbol is not the same as like another person describing dryness in a symbol. So when somebody says, "Hey man, I need you to make me something dry," I got to ask a lot of follow-up questions because dry, like I said, like it can mean really different things to people. All right. I'm going to give you a couple examples here. Sabian used to I don't know if they still make this, but I had one of these back in the day. It was a really great cymbal. The AA Dry Ride. Okay. Now, like today's standards of dryness, I don't think many people would consider the cymbal to be dry at all. But at the time, it was, I guess, fairly dry, and it is dry in one way. It's just not dry in other ways. That cymbal was a fully lathed, like, normal looking, like AA cymbal. There was no raw bell, nothing was unlathed, but it was medium heavy. First of all, usually when people think about dry cymbals nowadays, they're thinking of like the Meinl Byzance, extra dark, extra trashy, low profile, heavily hammered, super deformed cymbals. This is like the polar opposite of that. All right. But it was very well defined. It was pretty pingy, and there was a lack of sustain in the cymbal, which is technically what dryness refers to. It's dry being like the absence of moisture, right? Or in terms of a cymbal, would be the absence of sustain, because sustain is basically what a cymbal is designed to do. The reason that bronze is used to make cymbals is because bronze, by its very nature, allows for sustain, for vibration. Okay. So that Sabian cymbal, because of the way they have a smaller bell on that dry ride, which gives it more flat ride characteristics. So you get a lot of stick and less of the just sort of sustaining overtones. And also the shape of the profile curvature and its weight or thickness and the tension on the bow was very, very tight. So you couple all those things together. And yes, even though it's a heavy lathe cymbal, all of that together allows it to be dry. Okay. You guys following me? I know it's like kind of confusing, but trying to break it down as easily as I can here. The more modern use of the term dry typically refers to like like I said, the Meinl stuff, like the Byzance, dark dry, this and that. Those cymbals are dry because they are pretty thin. They are low profile. They are Most of them are unlathed, so they have the tin oxide on the exterior of the cymbal, which dampens its ability to vibrate and shoot sound off of it. And they're also very heavily hammered, and even hammered in a way to actually deform the bronze, like really deep hammering, which causes sort of that sort of trashiness. So all of that put together, that's sort of the modern dry sound. That is a sound that a lot of people were chasing, a lot of people were going for, because you see like, Annika Nilles, or Benny Greb on Instagram or YouTube playing those cymbals. But you got to keep in mind, they're playing by themselves. It's just them playing drums under microphones, mixed really well with some really nice preamps, some really nice mics, some real nice compression, maybe even some real good post production. Who knows? But so, yeah, in the studio, that works. Especially if you're playing, if it's just drums. But when you're playing in an ensemble, man, a cymbal that dry is not going to work. It just doesn't work. I mean, I'm sure some of you guys in here are pros, man. Like Dom, you can tell the folks, man. Um, that kind of cymbal, take that to a gig. Go play your local bar, right? Your local dive bar where you might get a kick drum mic if you're lucky. That's it. Your drums aren't going to be mic'd. You got a bass player who's pounding it out, low frequencies. You got a guitar player, maybe some keys, some vocals that you won't even hear that cymbal. And I can attest, I used to play in a rock band. We used to gig all the time in bars like that. And I played a Sabian 22-inch hand hammered raw dry ride because I didn't know any better. I liked the way the cymbal sounded, but I didn't think like, how does it sound with the band? How does it work live? And I would always be hitting it so hard live, trying to get more sound out of it, that I would get like tendonitis. And I was overplaying way, way, way too much. And I don't know, like, why it never dawned on me that, like, hey, man, like, you should probably be playing like a 2002 ride would be great, because then you don't really even have to hit it that hard, and it'll just sit on top of the band, you know? So you got to take into consideration what you're doing with that cymbal, man. One of those cymbals is not going to work. If you're playing like a real soft acoustic gig and you just have like a piano and like a, maybe a female vocalist and you're playing some real chill stuff in a small space, okay. Yeah, that might work. But beyond that, or jazz, depending on what kind of trio you're with or whatever. But man, outside of that, those cymbals are great for playing by yourself or like playing on Instagram, but or if you are on like a real well produced tour where your drum kit is mic'd really well, your cymbals are mic'd, you have an engineer and he can mix those cymbals higher than they actually are so that they actually work within the context of the band. But most of us are not going to have that kind of gig, So it's really not the wisest thing to get. And I've talked a lot of people out of buying things like that or having me make them things like that because I know you think you want it, but I'm telling you, you don't. You don't want that. All right. So that brings us into surface finish. We kind of touched on the surface finish because we talked about the unlathed component with those vinyl cymbals. So the surface of a cymbal does matter. Okay. But again, you have to take in all of the factors. So somebody might say, like, well, brilliant cymbals are this, natural cymbals are that. Well, again, you can't just say that. Um, the Zildjian K Custom ride or the Zildjian Earth ride, those are unlathed cymbals, but they're extremely heavy, thick cymbals with a real big profile, really big bell, really tight bow, really high pitch, and they've been buffed. So all of the tin oxide is gone. So yes, it's unlathed, but it is no, um, you know, softer or lower volume than a cymbal that's lathed. So again, you can't just make blanket statements about stuff like that. Um, but if you had two cymbals of the same thickness, same size, all that stuff I've been drilling into your head, the one that's unlathed would be lower volume because it would be muted by that tin oxide. Okay. The cleaner the surface, you can bring out a sort of smoothness to the sounds. The not only the lathing or the finish, brilliant, natural, whatever, but also the way that the cymbal is hammered. The more smooth the compression of the bronze, the more smooth will be the sound that you get out of the cymbal. If you have a hammering that's real deformed and disrupted, then the sound will be far less smooth and clean and clear. All right. Adam says, I learned the hard lesson of using mellow cymbals live and it like hitting nothing. Yep. 2 years ago, started collecting 2002s to have for live. Big difference. Blickum, Blickum. I love all this info. I'm a total summer for you. Are most welcome, man. You are most welcome. Yeah. I mean, 2002s, obviously everybody should play NickyMoon cymbals, but 2002s are really great. I had that aha moments one time when I was playing those with the band, and I went, man, I this is just it's just cutting, and I just don't have to play that hard, and can go easy on my tendons and everything, and take it easy on my body, which is nice. So, and that's why you guys see all of most metal drummers, they're not looking for nuance in their cymbals, man. Um, Metal drummers just need to cut through just enormous volumes and all kinds of screaming and distorted guitars and crazy pound and bass and everything else. So, yeah, big, heavy B8 cymbals, like we were talking about, like that's exactly what they need. They can just cut real easy. So, 2002s to my untrained eye has seemingly little lathing. 2002s are, they are lathed. It's just Spice has sort of a unique way of lathing. It's a little bit different than some of the other companies. Um, they are fully hammered too. They're hammered with a pneumatic hammer that is controlled by a person, and they're hammered into shape, meaning that the cymbal starts with a completely flat blank, and the entire shape is formed through the process of hammering, which is absolutely 100% unequivocally the best way to make a cymbal. There is no better way to make a cymbal. I'm going to say it again. Hammering a cymbal, not just hammering it for tone after the shape has been pressed in or whatever, that's still going to add something to it, but hammering a cymbal from blank into shape is the ultimate ideal and best way to make a cymbal. And that is why people go, "Why do Paiste 2002 sound so good? They don't sound like B8. Every other B8 cymbal that I've ever heard sounds like different." Because it's pretty much Paiste 2002 and Giant Beat are the only B8 cymbals on the market that are hammered into shape. Doesn't matter if the guy's using a pneumatic hammer or whatever. It's if there's a person controlling it and it's being brought into that tension and shape completely by hammering. That is crucial to those cymbals sounding the way that they do. So, does anybody have any questions on all that crap? And then I'm going to get into discussing some NickyMoon stuff and what cymbals from my catalog and my, what I make and how that can work for you and how to talk to me about what you want and what to get. So hit me up with some questions. Anybody? If you don't, I'm just going to keep singing. Couldn't you talk about how you get more or less wash out of a cymbal? Sure. It depends on what I'm starting with, but how do I decide which sticks to use to test cymbals? Okay, I will address that one next. How to get more or less wash out of a cymbal? If I have, for example, a like Zildjian medium ride, right? I know how they made that cymbal because I'm a dork. Okay. So I know how to change it into having more wash. In general, wash equals sustain. So looser tension of the cymbal is going to mean that it will wobble and sustain and just kind of more than it will be articulate. Okay. It's important to note, by the way, guys, that like back in the day, like if you watch, for example, videos of like Buddy Rich or whatever playing, right? He just had cymbals. They were just cymbals. They didn't make like crash, ride, this and that. It was just like a 20-inch cymbal, and it was like up to you to make it like you can crash it sometimes, you can ride it sometimes. Over time, cymbal making has evolved to the point where we started to figure out like, oh, we can sort of tweak it this way to bring out more of the stick. And then that's why it's a ride, right? It's a little bit better for that. Or we can bring out more of the crash and a little bit less of the stick. Now it's a crash. But at its core, cymbal is a cymbal for the most part. It's kind of up to you to figure out how to use it and make it do what you want. But in extreme cases, there's are crash cymbals that could never be ridden, and there are ride cymbals that could never be crashed. Did I answer that question? I don't think so. Make it the tension looser and also taper it. Most cymbals don't have much of a taper. They're the even thickness from the bell to the edge. If you make that a sort of gradual thin out to the edge and reduce tension, then you will achieve washiness and crashiness. All right. Profile too. If the profile is too high, it can be difficult to make a cymbal crash pleasantly. They tend to have more bell-like overtones, that kind of thing, like Zildjians, all of them. Okay. That was that. How do you decide which sticks to test cymbals? Very good question. If I'm making a cymbal specifically for somebody, which is usually what I'm doing, I will ask them, what sticks do you play? Because it matters a lot. I just had this discussion with a friend of mine. We were going through some of my cymbals that he has, that he bought for me, and we were playing them with different sticks, and he was like, "Wow, this is like really different with this one, really different with that one." Yeah. So if you say, "I want you to make me a cymbal that has all these characteristics, blah 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 blah," and I test it with a 5B acorn tip, but you play a 7A round tip, well, it's going to sound with those characteristics the way I tested it, but when you get it, it might sound a little bit different. So I want to know what you're playing with so that I can cater the cymbal to work with, your gear, your hands, your sticks, how hard do you play, and all that stuff. That being said, if I'm just making a cymbal to sell, just in general, I will test it with a variety of sticks. I usually use like a 5B Vic Firth, which has a pretty substantially sized acorn tip. I will test it with a 5A, some sort of ball tip, that I have, some kind of 7A thinner stick, and whatever else I have kicking around. Those three is usually enough. Even just a 5A, 5B, two different tips is enough to kind of know. But any foundries that make planks in the US, uh, Zildjian, good luck. Um, So yeah, I will test with a lot of sticks because I want to know, and I will try to make the cymbal sound as good with all of the sticks as I can. Like I said, unless I'm catering it to a very specific person, which I do a lot of that. I'm wondering how to introduce a NickyMoon into my collection. Perhaps something that aligns nicely with a 20 Carope. All right. Well, after I'm gonna get through a few more questions, and then we're gonna go through NickyMoon stuff. I don't know, maybe anybody can tell me, is there a time limit on these YouTube live streams? I know if you go live on Instagram, they cut you off at an hour. We are already at 46 minutes, which is awesome. But I'm just gonna keep yapping, and hopefully, if they do cut me off, I'll just start another stream. So don't run away. Come on back. So, Adam, I will get into that shortly. Let me just get through these other couple things here. Is the Istanbul Mehmet nostalgia 50s decent cymbals? They sound great over video. I never heard them in person. Istanbul Mehmet is a very good manufacturer. Yes. Istanbul Mehmet is one of the originals. Like Mehmet and Agop together were the original Istanbul, who was the very first Turkish company after Zildjian. So like it doesn't get much more original than that. Um, Now, obviously, things change over time. I mean, quality changes, manufacturing techniques change. Mehmet is a lot more modernized in their production, but so is an Agop. People tend to think Agop is a little bit more like traditional, but they're not. They're all using modern manufacturing techniques now too. Um, but all the Mehmets that I've had in general, not all, but most, I've enjoyed the Mehmets more than the Agops. And I do a lot of cymbal modifications, a lot. I don't know that exact line, but I would say buy with a reasonable degree of confidence. But man, I don't know, with Turkish cymbals, it's tough because there is such a great deal of variety in the way that they come in. You maybe want to find a dealer, and there's plenty of them. You know, uh, but yeah, man, Mehmet's like one of my heroes, dude. He's like still alive and still making cymbals. So I would never say a bad thing about him or them. Eric, at what point in making a cymbal do you listen to it? And what are you listening for? That is the greatest question, man. Such a good question. I listen like pretty much the entire time. And this is really kind of a fundamental difference between what I do and what Big Cymbal does. When I say Big Cymbal, by the way, guys, I'm talking about Z, S, M, P. You know what I mean? Like the big guys. And anybody else that's mass producing at that level. They manufacture in terms of manufacturing as a business. We are manufacturing to tolerances. They have these cymbals can be, this weight range. They can be this whatever. Like there's tolerances. But that's it. There's not a lot of playing. They test them in 2 seconds. Once the whole process is done, done, right? I'm not saying their cymbal tester isn't amazing. I'm sure he is, but that is not enough time with a cymbal to determine whether or not it's good. So I will, once I start forming the cymbal through hammering, as soon as I have even like a relative shape, I will play the cymbal and listen to it. And that will guide me as far as like, okay, where do I need to take it? Does it have any weird spots in the bronze that need to be dealt with? It's a pretty intimate process. Like I spend a lot of time with every single cymbal. And after that initial stage, of hammering, I will play it. And then when you make cymbals though, they sound different freshly made than they will in 24 hours or 48 hours. So you now I like with experience what it's going to sound like the next day. Um but where was I going with that? But then I'll come back the next day, I'll play it again, and then I'll make more changes to it. After lathing, I'll usually play it. Over time, I've definitely gotten way more confident in what I do, where I don't have to test them quite as much. I used to be obsessive. I would like just never. I would back and forth between my living room and my studio here, just like constantly like checking it. Now I can just look at the shape and everything and know pretty good what's going to happen. But I test them multiple times throughout the process. And what am I listening for? I'm listening for the things that are important to me and the things that I have learned are important to you guys, which is, I think, not to like pat myself on the back too much, but the reason I've been successful is because I have a really good ear for what sounds good and what sounds bad. And that is because I am a drummer. I've been playing drums since I was 6 years old. So that's 34 years. Um, so most cymbal makers aren't drummers. They're just people that manufacture stuff for a living. So that's a big factor too. I'm listening for ugly, stinky overtones, the stick definition that I want. I'm listening for signs of any kinds of like imperfections or damages in the bronze. That's pretty much it. Like overtones and ugly competing frequencies that don't sound pleasant are the things that bother me the most. And I make sure that those things are not present. And then I just make sure that I'm meeting the needs of the person that I'm working for, at the time. If I'm making something for you, then the symbol's doing what you asked me to make it do. And if I'm just making it as one of my series of models, I know in my head what it's supposed to sound like, and I'm just chasing that, you the Aquarian springs will protect your cymbals. You know what, man? I bought into those back back in the old days when I was a child. Uh, let's see. Maybe okay, let's see. When I was 15, so I'm 40. Somebody do the math. I'm so bad at math. 25 years ago. Those things have been around for a long time. I saw them advertised. I think it was, oh man, it was in Modern Drummer, and I was like, oh okay. I bought it to mount the China cymbal because they said it would protect it, but all it did was choke the crap out of the sustain of the cymbal. Because you're just clamping two pieces of rubber really tight onto the bell, and then the thing, I don't know. I think it's pretty stupid, to be honest with you. But if you like that thing, don't, you know, not use it because I said it was dumb. I just didn't like it. Um, and if you mounted like a ride cymbal on it, it's like, you know, I just lost somebody. Somebody liked those springs, they just left. Sorry. Okay, now YouTube doesn't cap in stuff. Okay, thank you, Dom. Uh I have a pristine Pisces 602 deep ride from the 60s. It's incredible. I'd like to have a clone of it. Cool. We can do that. If you want to send me an email, info@NickyMoon.com, with some sound clips, and everything else, we can make that happen. Definitely. Adam has the same ride. That's cool. Yo, happened on a Guitar Center. Love it. Is there a symbol that you're asked to redo that's good to your ears to start with? What's wrong with this? It's yes, all the time. That happens regularly. Sandy Bellion. Um, the thing that is very important about what I do, especially with modifications, is you got to understand this is a life lesson, folks. Everybody is different. Okay. What's good to you might not be good to me. There are sort of general things that are good to most people, but everybody has a different ear. Everybody has a different purpose for the symbol. So, for example, you have I'm going to just keep using this one. Zildjian A medium ride 20 from the vintage Zildjian A, right? 20-inch. That for the longest time was good for what you were doing because you were playing some kind of rock music and it was great, right? But in later years in your life, you started to listen to like Art Blakey and like Elvin and these other guys. So while that still is a good symbol and it still functions very well for certain things, it no longer serves that person's needs. So I'm going to get that symbol in the mail and go, this thing actually sounds really nice. But to them, it's not doing what they want or what they need. So I will transform that into what they want and what they need. All right. Now, unless if some people will just send me a symbol and be like, just make it better. They don't really have a goal in mind for the symbol. And then when I get sent a symbol that still like already sort of sounds good, then I'm like, okay, well, it already sounds good to me, but and just to make it generally better. But even then, uh, you know, I have a way of doing that. Yeah, I don't want to sound like an arrogant douche, but yeah. Love to find the SSS. Luckily, I never break symbols. That's good. Can you make orchestral crash cymbal pairs? Sure. Why not? It's just like a bigger pair of hi-hats that crashes. Yeah, I could do that. Absolutely. All right. There was a question back here from Adam. He asked about incorporating NickyMoon symbols. Let me find that question. Okay, something that aligns nicely with a 20-inch corrupt. Okay, so what I do that is different than conventional symbol making, symbol companies, whatever. They say, hey, K is for jazz, A is for rock, this is for that, this is for this. These are your choices. Here's what you can buy. Choose, right? I say, let me put the power into your hands and you tell me what you are looking for, right? And then my series are sort of loose, like trim packages, I would almost say. Think about like, because it's a custom experience, like a 20-inch one series ride. Yes, that is a model, right? But if you order it and go, hey, I want a 20-inch one series ride that's a little bit more in this direction, like we can totally do that, right? Um, there's like think of like a Toyota Camry, right? There's like the base model, or not a Toyota Camry. That's a bad example. Okay, the Chevy Tahoe, right? That platform, the frame, the whatever for that vehicle is the same for the Tahoe, and then all the Tahoe different levels, the Tahoe whatever, base model, Tahoe Platinum, Tahoe Sport Edition. It's the same platform for all the GMC Yukons, Denali's, and all those, and the Cadillac Escalades and all the different Escalade variations, right? So there's so many different variations on one platform. I think of the Cymbal series as sort of like trim packages to automobiles. So does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. It's sort of like the subtleties of the series are almost less important than the characteristics that you want to get from the symbol. If you say like, unless the characteristics are very, very extreme, you know, in general, though, generally speaking, one series is designed to be in between like the old K and like the vintage A. It's kind of like and like the 602 vintage stuff. It's sort of like a all encompassing. That's why it's the one series. It's like the one symbol, right? That had all the characteristics that I loved. That symbol is very versatile and it can work in almost like anything. And I can tweak that symbol to work in almost anything. The one series old world is more in the old K direction. And then the 1 Series Clear is way more in the vintage A direction. And then the regular one is like kind of, like I said, in the middle. You know what I mean? So that's kind of like the 1 Series spectrum in, if you were to compare it to Zildjian. The Sentinel series that I have is more in like the Agop 30th anniversary sort of stuff, like more traditional dark, traditional dry, a little bit less projecting. Um, but then again, within the Sentinel series, there's a few different models. There's the Tradition, which is just a traditionally lathed cymbal that's overhammered to have a bit of bow tension, really heavily hammered bell. There's the Lavas, which is unlathed, which is, as we talked about before. Um, it's a little bit more of a dry. It's more dry. And then I cut some of the other Sentinel options out of there, but those are still available as custom orders. The Sage stuff that I just came out with, that is designed for Mike Dawson. Most of you probably know who he is. He's a phenomenal drummer, educator, gear reviewer. He's a guy who is very, very creative, and he does a lot of incredible things musically and very, very diverse in his playing. And he's now an official NickyMoon Custom Cymbals artist, by the way, which is awesome. Um, I had approached him about being an artist way, way back in the day, before I even knew that he was managing editor of Modern Drummer. And he was like, I would love to, but I review cymbals for a living, so that would be a conflict of interest. But he's no longer doing that. So now he's on the team officially, which is great. But I needed to make cymbals for him. It was kind of a personal challenge that is expressive enough to like capture his depth of playing and depth of his personality and spirit, but also be extremely versatile because, like I said, he can play pretty much anything. So Sage are pretty like, whoever is dumping these lame links, like, can you stop? Just go away. Go away, dude. Um, Thanks, Eric. Thank you. Those symbols are like they have a darkness to them. Like it's like there's a thing. It's definitely got a darkness to it, but still in a way that projects. They have a raw bell, so the bell's fairly thick on those cymbals. They're sort of constructed, oops, sorry, hammering wise like a 1 Series, but it does have that thicker unlathed bell. And then the lathing is the Sentinel Champagne style lathing, which is a hybrid between the Sentinel more traditional lathing and the 1 Series lathing, which is more along the lines of like a Brilliant. So it's kind of a cross between those two. So it's a lot of different elements from kind of all of my stuff, all kind of put together in that package. And they're really, really cool cymbals. I'm really proud of them. Mike loves them. And I've been getting a really good response from them. So um, basically, if you want to incorporate Nicky Moons as far as a Kerope, um, Kerope, I would say you probably want to go Sentinel. Sentinel is more of that. Kerope is a little bit of a lower profile, a little bit thinner, some patina. It's a little bit mellower. So I would be going into the Sentinel tradition would be something to look at. Um, the Sentinel Lava if you like the unlathed stuff. Um, and even the Sentinel Champagne. Yeah. But again, subtle differences, subtle differences. So you could tell me, hey, I really want all those characteristics of the Corrupt, but I really like the 1 Series. I want you to do it in a 1. And by doing it in a 1 versus Sentinel, you will have a little bit more like frequency as a result of the lathing and the finish on the 1 Series. It's going to give you a little bit more sound. It's just like jumping off of those cymbals. Those cymbals have a lot of sound coming off of them. But in a very, very pleasing, controlled way. Like if you play a 1 Series in a studio with like, really sensitive microphones, like they still sound really, really, really nice. So it sounds like I'm doing a commercial now, which really wasn't my intention here. I mean, obviously I want you guys to buy cymbals and stuff, but just wanted to kick out some knowledge. So to anybody, did I answer your question, Adam? Hopefully I did. And anybody else, what makes 2 symbols go well together, especially with unique old symbols? I find it challenging. Yeah. Yeah, it's tough sometimes to match symbols. You know, like what symbols? Like how do you play too? Like like I had a setup one time. I had all Zildjian Ks, like just the modern Ks. To me, that's the best Zildjian series. I really like just a regular modern K if I had to choose. They're pretty versatile. They sound pretty nice, as far as big cymbal stuff goes. Um, but I didn't like the rides, and I had a Sabian. They had a B8 series that was like a little bit more high end at one point. I forget what they were called. APX, I think. I had a Sabian APX ride mixed in with Ks. And you would think like that doesn't really go together, but I made it work by the way that I play, you know? So that's kind of something to consider too. Um, but what makes them go together? It's all of these things that I've been talking about: the shape, the tension, the age, the surface finish, the level of hammering, all these different things that go into them. If the pitch is way different, sometimes that's not gonna work, but it can. Like, you don't want 2 of the same cymbals on your kit usually, right? You want complementing cymbals. So think of it like harmony, you know? 2 notes, you might want like an E and a G, that's a nice minor third. But if you have an E and a B flat, that's a tritone, that could be ugly. So try to think of it in terms of that, like, do they complement each other in any way? Or is it just, like, too different, you know? They have to have some similar characteristics for them to work in an ensemble, in a pair. They can't just be completely unless you're playing some really, really avant-garde stuff and you need, like, completely different things, but if you're trying to have a nice cohesive setup, they have to have some characteristics that work together. Pitch being one of them, how loud they are. If one of them is just way, way louder than another one, that's gonna be really tough to work with, you know? A lot of factors. It's kinda difficult to if you're wondering, like, how do I just buy 2 random symbols off of eBay and know if they go together? It's gonna be tough. I mean, I could probably do that because of the knowledge that I have, but it's gonna be tough for you as a consumer, which is why I'm doing stuff like this. So, try to just take everything that I discussed today and keep following the content that I put out, and you'll be more educated, and you'll be able to figure stuff like that out. Adam is saying it would mainly be for studio, jazz, funk, blah, 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 broad range of styles. I like to corrupt it. It doesn't know. Yeah. Yeah, man. Sentinel would be killer. Adam Wax says, I recently got a 22-inch A from the 60s. Fairly light, kind of funky, dirty sounding, makes a great jazz ride. Yeah. Yeah, dude. Vintage A's are starting to be appreciated. And that is why I am rolling out the 1 Series Clear. The 1 Series Clear, man. The symbol back here, hold on, man. This is one of them. This is the prototype. Well, no, I already came out with them. This is the new prototype. I have a new way of making them. Oh yeah, baby, that sounds nice. Um, yeah, the vintage A's are being appreciated more and more. And there's tons of them on the market. There's just like enough to pile to the moon. So, yeah, the 1 Series Clear is sort of a vintage a vintage Peisty 602. You know, little bit of clean, like modern-y, like AAX-y kind of thing, but not like that nasally, like rubbing alcohol thing that they have going on. Like, much classier than that. No offense. Was there a symbol that is unworkable? Oh yeah, yeah. There are symbols that are unworkable. I got sent a lot of them this month, actually. Not everything is like worth modifying. There has to be something for me to work with. Like, if you send me a symbol if first of all, if it's really, really, really old, it's it can be done, but, like, you gotta be careful. Like, don't expect like, you can't go super crazy because the bronze gets brittle as it gets older, the molecules change inside and the bronze becomes more brittle, more hard, and it's a little bit more dangerous to work with stuff that's, like, super, super old. Um, if it's already has cracks and damage, like, if you're not asking me to do a crack repair, but you want, like, a modification, like, I can't like, what do you expect me to do with it, really? Depending on where the cracks are. It has to have enough weight to be able to sustain work. Like, the thickness of the cymbal, there has to be enough mass there to hold the shape. If it's too thin, um, like really, really thin, there's very little can be done in the way of like hammering, lathing because it's there's just eventually the thing just turns into a piece of paper, it just kind of so also if it's like brass or something, I can maybe lathe off the patina from years of getting sweat on and everything else. I actually did modify I think it was a camber brass cymbal, and I couldn't believe how good it actually came out. It was kind of shocking, but in general, you might not want to sink your money into doing a mod on something like that. The cymbal needs to be semi. Hey, Kevin Safara, what's up, man? That cymbal you just played sounded wonderful. Def had the vintage A60. Oh, cool. Thanks, man. Thanks. It's funny when this is Kevin. Kevin Safara is a wonderful drummer, educator, teacher, studio owner. Everybody get hip to Kevin and check him out. What was I gonna say? Oh, me and Kevin and I should say, we're talking at the Bucks County Drums Clinic about Kevin checking out some things, and I was thinking, Kevin, that the one clear might be something that you would be interested in. So, um, let me build a couple more of these prototypes, this new way that I'm making them, and then we're gonna get together and have you check some out, definitely. But yeah, what the hell was I talking about? Told you guys I got ADD. We were talking about vintage A's, blah blah blah. Oh, unworkable symbols for modification. There has to be enough there for me to work with. It has to have some material there to be actually modified and brass, not really worth it. Nickel silver can be done, did do it, but a lot of the old nickel silver symbols are so incredibly thin that again, the only thing I could really do with something like that is really trash it up. But you can't take like hey, I have a dream bliss, Chinese alloy, super thin, dark, trashy, wobbly, weird thing and turn it into like a Peisty 602 crystal clear. Like that's impossible. That's not possible. The starting material has to also be able to be manipulated into what it is. But if you don't know, then just ask and I'll tell you. But for the most part, most stuff can be improved. Kevin says, "Well, we got to get together for sure. I just played a whole set. Let me see. Is it? Oh, thank you. Yeah, Chris Carr just bought some 1 series old worlds over there. Bucks County drums, awesome drums. 1 series old world cymbals over there. Yeah, those are sweet. So, do you guys have any further questions? I think I've rambled off most of the stuff I wanted to touch upon. If anybody has any additional questions about selecting cymbals, choosing cymbals for your musical applications, or which Adam, thanks. I got to run. Thanks for stopping by, Adam. We'll be in touch, man. Have a great night. Any further questions about selecting cymbals or which Nicky Moon cymbals are best for you or explaining Nicky Moon stuff? Oh, and I promised you guys, those of you that have stuck around, and Adam's going to split. Adam, I hope you're still there. Coupon code YT Live, YouTube Live, YT Live 22 will get you 20% off anything on the Nicky Moon website. I haven't put the coupon code up. As soon as we finish the stream, I'm going to put it up. You got 24 hours. I'm going to put it up 20% for 24 hours. All right. Thanks for answering my question from Manila. All right, looks like I think I answered everybody's questions. Anything further? Have I heard of Bart of Drum History? Yes, I've been on that podcast twice. Twice. Once this past year and once the year prior. So definitely look up those because those are two super nerdy, super long. The first one was a history of cymbals in general, bronze and cymbals, like from the beginning of humanity. And the second one was about what the heck was it? Oh, myths, cymbal myths in the cymbal industry. Um, Take care, Kevin. Have a great night, man. I'll talk to you soon. Um, yeah. So Bart is a friend of mine. I met him in person last year at the Nashville Music City Drum Show. We hung out, had a couple beers and pizza. He's a really, really awesome guy, very dedicated to what he does, and his podcast is incredible. So please get hip to the Drum History podcast. And Sandy, yeah, definitely check out the 2 episodes that I did because there's a ton of cymbal nerd knowledge on there. And hopefully at some point in the future, I'll be back on the show to do more. So any further questions, guys, can always hit me at info@NickyMoon.com. I will respond. It can take up to 4 or 5 days at this point because I get a lot of emails and messages, but I will get back to you. I promise. And I will probably do another stream at some point in the future. If anybody has topics that they're interested in, feel free to suggest them. And if you want the full experience of cymbal nerdery, Patreon. I got a Patreon channel and we go all in, dude. All in. I drop videos every week. We do all kinds of stuff, reviewing stuff, talking about different techniques that go into making cymbals, talking about different manufacturers' products, the trips that I've taken to factories and foundries overseas, just all kinds of stuff. So find me over there at patreon.com/NickyMoon Cymbals, www.nickymoon.com. Email me at info@nickymoon.com. Coupon code YTLIVE22 will get you 20% off anything on the Nicky Moon web store. For the next 24 hours, I'm going to put the coupon code up right now. Thanks for watching, everybody, and I will see you soon. Peace. Be good to each other. Be nice to people. Don't be an asshole.